on the e-business and construction module. So Finbarr is head man in concept switching.
One posting. It's confusing.
Right. He's evolved himself there recently, so that's what business is all about these days. So you can find your presentation.
Okay, morning everybody. Can you do something else with this to get it to show on screen as well? You want it to show on both? You want to show you on both? So. Okay, good morning everybody. As I was introduced, I'm Finbarr McCarthy. I'm the Director of Client Engagement at a company called One Posting and a lecturer on the e-business and construction module. My background may be a little different in that I come from a business degree background, not in construction at all. And after I graduated from NIHE Dublin, I started work in Bank of Ireland in their IT department, supporting their international banking operations in London, New York, Hong Kong and Dublin. And what that gave me was a very great insight into large-scale IT support and IT projects. I left the bank in 1994 and co-founded a company. It was founded a year later in 1995, which has morphed itself into One Posting. And outside of the work I do with One Posting, I'm a mentor for Enterprise Ireland, so I actually guide and advise small software companies on how to grow and how to develop internationally. I also have undertaken tech checks for CITA, Kildare County Enterprise Board and South Dublin County Enterprise Board. And over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, I've probably visited about 200 small companies looking at how they use IT and coming up with ideas, suggestions and recommendations on how they can use IT more intelligently. In terms of my background, a lot of experience, as you can imagine, across lots of different industries with lots of different companies. And I currently work for a company called One Posting, which is involved in electronic invoicing space. So we help connect buyers and suppliers and help them trade electronically. And that effectively involves a couple of things. We do electronic invoicing, which we'll cover in the module. We also do print, pack and post. So we actually print invoices for clients. And the reason we do that is that we recognize that yes, technology is fantastic, but not everybody will embrace technology at the same speed. So we have to be able to cater for people who want invoices in paper until they migrate and transition towards electronic. And we support lots of different documents. So we've got invoices, credit notes, statements, remittance advices, purchase order PODs, and reports. And I noticed when talking earlier about the schedules, when Owen was talking about schedules for rebar, etc. That effectively to us is a report that goes along with an invoice. So quite often, or a POD. So quite often, even though we're looking at e-business and electronic invoicing, quite often there's other documentation that has to accompany an invoice in order for it to get paid. And at this point in time, our company from a standing start with a new product basically launched in 2009, 20% of all Irish businesses now receive invoices through us. So that's a background to me, and it introduces what I do on the course, because the course effectively is to introduce the concepts of e-business and e-commerce in the construction sector. And there's a number of things that we're trying to do, a number of objectives that we're trying to achieve out of the course. The first one is looking at how important is e-business, and you saw the previous speakers outlining where IT can help in the construction industry, the kind of difference that it can make to the daily lives of contractors large and small. Secondly, looking at what technologies are required to support an e-business strategy. So yes, we have to do the academic view on technology, but also have to then apply that in the real world. How do we constructively and productively use that information? And I think Trevor mentioned that business process mapping was an essential tool for the course that we did, where we looked at a business, broke down each of the components of a business and saw how IT would apply. And then we tried to see, well, when we've identified how a business works, how do we break it down? How do we identify how it can be improved? So what we're looking to do is identify inefficiencies and weaknesses in the existing process and see where technology has a role in improving that. So what do we mean by e-business? Well, e-business in its entirety is looking at the use of technology in an organization. So most companies would have all of their data sitting centrally somewhere, enterprise data. But as you can see, there's lots of different people who need access to different components and subset of that information. And that's internally within the organization itself. We've also got other people involved in looking at the information. So we've got the shareholders of the business, you may have regulatory authorities, so lots of other people who need access to the information from your business. Even something as simple as your tax returns to the revenue. And then you've got suppliers sending information electronically, and hopefully you've also exchanging information electronically with customers. So we have to look at IT not in isolation of a computer system to satisfy the internal needs of our company. We have to look at how we integrate with information requirements from all the other people that we interact with on a daily basis. In terms of the module that I lecture on, there's a number of stages to a number of components of the module. The first one is the introduction, so we're talking about what is the role of business in an organization and how is it used. And then we delve more into the supply chain, because ours is specifically around e-business and electronic invoicing. So looking at the supply chain, trying to understand the various interactions that occur in the supply chain. Trevor mentioned change management, that IT and the implementation of IT is not just a technology play. One of the things that will stop an IT project dead in its tracks is the reaction of the people to it, both internally in the organization. So the way that people view IT can either ensure a very successful deployment of IT, or it can kill an IT project, even with the best technology in the world. So a critical thing that we had to cover in the course was the impact on people of introducing new technology. Of course, we have to look at technology itself and look at all the various technologies that are emerging. And there are lots of technologies that we've seen on the construction side. There are lots of technologies in terms of the e-business and the e-commerce side of things. And then we have to look at how we go about technically implementing solutions. So the disciplines of project management associated with IT and how you put an IT project in place. One of the things on the module that I teach, because I come from a very business-oriented background, I'm trying to marry all the time having practical skills that people can leave the course with and go out and implement in their own organizations, together with the academic background to it. So quite often a lot of what we do, and Trevor and Owen mentioned it, there's a lot of project work involved in the projects. So one of the things I would like to ask you is we're going to do a sample of real practical work, a sample of what we do on the course. So I'm going to throw the question out. How much do you believe it costs to send an invoice out to a customer right now? Anybody hazard a guess as to what it costs to send an invoice out to a customer? All right. 14 euros. Okay, 14 euros. So high start. Anybody else got any other views on how much it costs to send an invoice out? 20 euros. Okay.
I'd say about 300 or 400.
300 or 400 euros.
After, now that's not just, I say that's an underestimate, but again you chase it up, phone calls, blah blah blah.
Okay. Just to send it out. Yeah, we can incorporate that. So this has almost been like an auction. We're going up and massive rates here. Yes, you are putting in all of the elements of the process of chasing an invoice. Okay, but if I bring it back down to just the actual cost of physically sending the invoice out, and you can see use what it might cost. 20 euros to send an invoice out. A fiver. Okay. Time. Okay. Okay, well, a lot of these figures are quite high in comparison to what I had actually expected. So I will show you what I'd actually expected, because I'm involved in the business where I explain to people how much it costs them, and I constantly get beaten back saying, no, it doesn't cost that much. No way does it cost 200 euro. No way does it cost 14 euro. So we have to bring it back down to hard cent in terms of what it typically costs. And the cost we use is 88 cents, because we're excluding all of the chasing and all of everything else. So part of the discipline of what we do in the course will be to break down cost elements, because they have to be justifiable. How can you go to someone and say it costs 200 euros to issue an invoice, and they'll say, okay, but the person's already employed. If they're not sending out an invoice, they'll be doing something else, so it doesn't really cost me 200 euros. So So yes, there are all sorts of studies of multiple euros, and they weren't wrong by saying 200 euros, because that's how much the process probably does cost. When you're trying to justify it in terms of a business case, the executives or an organisation, they're going to say, we already have the staff, we're not getting rid of the staff, bring it down to low cost. So what we
include staff.
You include staff? Well, I do have a small staff, because I'm just physically talking about the actual art of sending, or act of sending the physical piece of paper in the post, which is what most people do. I'd actually expected somebody to say it doesn't cost me anything because I send it by email. Because I get that all the time. Oh, it doesn't cost us anything, we send it by email. Okay. How easy is it for your customer to retrieve an invoice after you send it by email? Oh, but it's searchable. How many times have you ever had to search for an invoice that you received 6 months ago, and how long did it take you to find it? So yes, it might appear to be free, but it's not really. So invoice distribution cost 88 cents. Now, receiving invoices, how much do you think it costs you to receive an invoice? Anybody want to hazard a guess at the cost of receiving an invoice from a supplier?
It costs you nothing if you just leave it in your...
Costs you nothing.
Scope is a
Okay,
bit vague. Finbarr, scope is a bit vague there.
It is, yes. Which is also an important element of the course, because while I threw out the 88 cent there earlier, all of the answers you gave are right, and they're also potentially wrong, because you have to look at the specifics of an organisation to know what their actual is. So do you want to hazard a guess, other than it cost us nothing to receive an invoice?
88 cents.
88 cents. Okay, well, we don't have the postage, etc., so it might be a little different to 88 cents. And if you ask any ideas, how much it will cost to receive an invoice into a company? Do you want to hazard a guess? 14 again. Not too far off.
20 cents.
The actual studies show that it costs each company that receives an invoice, per invoice, it costs between €7.50 and €150 to receive an invoice. Shocking figure for a lot of people. But if you go and do the research on it, Deutsche Bank, their estimate is €7.50 to €14. And there are lots of companies with lots of different estimates. PwC, they actually estimate it from €15 to €150. The Greek government has just done a study because of the disaster the state the Greek government is in. They reckon it costs €14 to receive every invoice, and they reckon that they will save €4 billion from being able to receive invoices electronically, because it will help them eliminate fraud. And an awful lot of the invoices they receive are fraudulent, a very high percentage. So 4 billion of savings is what the Greek government will save if they implement e-invoicing. When you drag that back down to a small SME or any kind of an organisation, you look at how can it benefit me? Well, you're going to generate a percentage of that saving relative to your turnover. In fact, we've done a study ourselves in the Irish government, and in just the handling of the paper, excluding the fraudulent claims, excluding the double payments, excluding anything like that, we've identified savings of 100 million that the state could make by quite simply saying to all its suppliers, send us the invoices electronically instead of in the post. 100 million. Just like that they could save. That would certainly pay for a few of the issues that the state currently has. When you look at electronic invoicing, the cost falls dramatically. You're talking a number of cents to receive an invoice rather than the 750 to 150 to receive an invoice as currently happens. Because what happens when you receive the invoice electronically is, if your business is disciplined enough to use purchase orders going out, everything just matches, and you should just pop it on the screen ready for payment, because everything else should match, and there's 2, 3, 4-way match depending on how your system is actually set up. So there are massive savings to be made even on the inbound side. And we're seeing more and more companies looking to force their suppliers to submit invoices electronically because of the benefits that the company gets internally. And these are the kind of things that we cover when we're going through the course. Of course, it's not all practical assignments. We have to do some learning. And again, I'm just a facilitator as the lecturer in the course. So I can point out that here's the information, here's where it's available, but it's up to the individuals on the course to go and delve in and review the information themselves. And that covers everything from legislation, both domestically and at the European Union level, but also to look at international trends. So I heard mentioned earlier of all the various countries where Irish companies are doing work. Well, it's looking at, in an international context, how does electronic invoicing work? And we're looking at constantly what's happening around the globe, what can you do? And again, it's up to each individual in the course to do their reading, and that reading then has to reflect through in the projects that they're actually assigned. So while the projects are looking at specific organisations and looking at how they're using IT, they've got to be able to draw in all the reading they've done internationally to pull it all in as they're making recommendations. They have to be able to stand over the recommendations they make for each assignment they work on. Methodologies, in terms of how the course actually works. The way the module I operated was we met as a group on the very first day. I think we spent just over half a day in lectures on that first day. So it was a getting to know you, introducing the course, going through a number of the lectures at the outset. And it was an opportunity for the group to meet, discuss, chat, to get to know each other, to put faces behind the names that they will see further on. As we went through then, the lectures were then delivered over the internet. So I think it was 2 evenings a week we did for 3 hours in the evening, I think like that. And we did that over a series of a number of weeks. So it was delivered effectively via webinar, where there were interactive discussions using the Adobe Connect Pro sharing tool. And then, of course, the people attending the course had to do their own personal reading. Then there's the assignments, and the assignments were in the form of project work, looking at actual organisations and trying to map out how they currently did things, to try and identify other ways of doing it differently. And then producing a set of recommendations to say, here's the weaknesses we've identified in an organisation, here are how those weaknesses could actually be addressed. That was the brief introduction and overview to the e-business and construction module at a very high level. You all did very well in your assessment of how much it costs to send and receive invoices. I think we're now open to questions from the floor.
Okay, thank you, Finbarr.